The official unemployment rate has improved by 0.7 percentage points to 31.9% in the third quarter of the year. The Free State shedding 3,000 jobs over the period. Business reporter Ntokozo Khumalo has just come out of the announcement, and she is standing by to speak to the Statistician-General Risenga Maluleke Ntokozo on whether this can be characterized as good news.
Well, whether it's good news or not, the Statistician-General will tell us he doesn't get moved by the numbers. He literally just delivers those numbers. But we are now surpassing those pre-COVID levels. So it does seem the economy is, sustaining or creating jobs. And the Free State, as you just said, being the only province in the third quarter to have shared jobs, and 6 out of the 10 sectors in the economy also really keeping those jobs and creating more jobs, with manufacturing, mining, transport and utilities being the sectors to share jobs. And Mr. Maluleke with me now to talk us through or give us some details around the data. We did see that we are now back at post or pre-COVID levels. Is it signs for us to see that we are seeing improvement when it comes to that unemployment rates, and especially after we saw that improvement again in the second quarter?
Well, for starters, Ntokozo, is that we have been seeing consecutively, this is the 8th quarter where we have been gaining employment. And of course, this quarter, the third quarter of 2023, is the second highest we once gained previously. In 2021, about 648,000 jobs, having gained about 400,000 jobs, 399,000 jobs to be exact, in the 8th quarter consecutive, shows that we are recovering pre-COVID times. So you will remember that pre-COVID, in the first quarter of 2020, we had 6.4 million persons employed. And it had been the same for the previous 2 quarters prior to that. Now, when we went to the second quarter of 2020, when we experienced the highest levels of lockdown, we lost about 2.3 million jobs. We went to the number of the employed sitting at 14.1 million. Now, we have been recovering slowly over time. In the last quarter, second quarter of 2023, we were sitting at 16.3 million jobs, meaning that we're inching closer to pre-COVID levels. Now, having returned in the third quarter of 2023, 16.7 million jobs employed, it means that we have surpassed the pre-COVID levels of employment, which had sustained 3 quarters prior to us being hit by COVID. Now, obviously, we have seen in the first and the second quarter that our economy has grown. So our economy is resilient and it continues to create jobs. So we're seeing recovery, pre-COVID levels, as well as growth in the number of those that are employed in this quarter, third quarter 2023.
And where are those jobs created? We're seeing, major sectors of the economy, manufacturing, mining, transport and utilities, shedding jobs in the third quarter. So where did we see those jobs being created?
But for us as statisticians in official practice, there's no major sector. If you talk about mining, agriculture and them, they account for about 3 to about 5% of our share of nominal GDP. So the biggest share or the biggest sector that we know in our economy, which accounts for about 20-23%, depending on the quarter, is finance. And in this regard, in this quarter, finance has gained 237,000 jobs, and that was followed by community and social services that recorded 119,000 jobs. And indeed, we can see that other sectors have gained jobs, and mainly if you look at areas like your construction, and which has always been depressed, having gained about 61,000 jobs.
And when we heard Dudu just mentioning that Free State was the only province to have shared jobs, did the data give us any indication on why that is, out of all the 9 provinces, for Free State to have shared those 3,000 jobs in that quarter?
When we look at the competitiveness of our provinces in relation to the economic sector. We know that the Free State is strong in agriculture. So while certainly agriculture has shown that we gained 61,000 jobs, and I said 61 for construction. 61,000 jobs come from agriculture, 53,000 jobs come from construction. Now, one of the things is that we know that in the Free State, your biggest or your strong sector is agriculture. And when agriculture gets affected in the Free State, you do see those movements in terms of the losses.
And KZN, Limpopo are leading those jobs being created. What were those provinces getting right according to the data?
But one of the things that we see in KwaZulu-Natal, for example, it was finance, having gained about 83,000 jobs, and we have seen that community services gained 26,000 jobs. And indeed, one of the things that we have been seeing in Limpopo is that generally in the past quarters, sectors that have not necessarily been creating employment in Limpopo, like your finance, your community and social services, have continued to create employment.
And while youth still remain the most vulnerable in the labor market, talk us through the improvement that the data is showing there when it comes to youth unemployment.
Young people aged 15 to 24 years continue to be vulnerable to labor markets. But even when you expand to 34 years, they continue to be vulnerable. It's the same for women. Black African women are much more exposed to labor markets. But one of the things for the 15 to 24 years, it's not only that they have the highest unemployment rate, followed by those that are 25 to 34 years. The fact is that out of the 10.2 million young people, regardless of where they are, aged 15 to 24 years, about 3.3 million of those are not in employment, education, or training. So they wake up and sit, do nothing.
Thank you so much, as always, for giving us those details, and of course to do with sectors such as manufacturing going to peak sales season. This hopefully is an opportunity for some of those young people to get some employment opportunities. But of course, that marginal improvement in the country's unemployment rates, now sitting at 31.9% in the third quarter. It's back to you in studio, Tutu.
Quite distressing to hear that young people wake up and sit and do nothing for the entire day, to joblessness. Ntokozo Khumalo, thank you very much for that report.